On the night before Titi disappeared, she laughed too loud, danced too long, and told her sister Ngozi that some prices were worth paying. By morning, her shadow was gone, and so was everything else. If you love stories full of mystery, magic, and lessons your grandmother never finished telling you, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. New stories drop every week. Now, let's go back to Lagos. The sisters lived in a Face Me, I Face You compound in Mushin, in a room so small that when one of them dreamed, the other could almost hear it. Their mother sold akara at the junction before dawn. Their father drove danfo until his knees gave up on him. They were not poor in spirit, but money was a stranger that visited only briefly and left without its shoes. Titi was the elder by 2 years, and she carried those 2 years like jewelry, always reminding Ngozi, always going first, always deciding. She was beautiful in the way that draws trouble, lips that curved like she knew something you didn't, eyes that caught light from rooms that had none. Boys from 3 streets away found reasons to walk past their compound. Ngozi was quieter. Ngozi was the one who counted change twice, who remembered to turn off the kerosene lantern, who noticed when things were missing. It was Ngozi who first noticed the woman at the market. She appeared one Thursday in Oshodi, between the fabric sellers and the yam stalls, a woman of no particular age, draped in a wrapper the color of midnight water. She sold nothing visible. She sat behind a small wooden table, and on the table was only a mirror, face down. People passed her without looking. That alone should have been a sign. She's been there every Thursday for 3 weeks, Ngozi told Titi that evening as their mother's obiata bubbled on the stove. Nobody buys from her. Nobody even looks at her, but she looks at you. Titi laughed her loud laugh. Ngozi, every time you go to that market, you come back with another ghost story. Eat your food. But the next Thursday, Titi went to Oshodi herself. She told Ngozi it was to buy Ankara for a friend's wedding. She came back with no Ankara, a strange smile, and something new, an energy, a heat, like she had been standing too close to a fire. I met your woman, Titi said, kicking off her slippers. Ngozi looked up slowly. And? She's interesting. That was all. That week, things began to change. Titi got a job at a boutique on Lagos Island she had been chasing for months. The manager called her out of nowhere. A man she had admired from a distance sent a message. Money came from a relative nobody had heard from in years. Titi moved through the compound like sunlight, warm, bright, and slightly blinding. Ngozi watched. Ngozi counted. Ngozi noticed. What did she give you? One evening when their mother was asleep and the compound had gone quiet, except for the generator at the big house across the street. Titi was filing her nails, admiring her fingers in the dim light. A deal. What kind of deal? The good kind, she smiled. She said Lagos takes from everyone. She just showed me how to take back. Titi, what did you give her? A long pause. Nothing I was using. Ngozi did not sleep that night. She lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling and listened to her sister breathe, steady, unbothered, beautiful, and felt something cold settle in her chest. She went back to Oshodi the next Thursday alone. The woman was there. The mirror was face down on the table, and this time she was looking directly at Ngozi before Ngozi had even reached the stall, like she had been expected. You are the careful one, the woman said. Her voice was smooth and layered, like fabric folded many times. Sit. Ngozi sat. What did you take from my sister? I took nothing. The woman turned the mirror over. Ngozi looked down and saw herself, but wrong. The reflection was there, but the shadow attached to it was dim, barely visible, like something fading. I offered, she accepted. Your sister was very eager. What was it? Her shadow. The woman said it simply, as if this were obvious. In our world, your shadow is the record of where you have been. Every place you walked, every door you stood outside and were afraid to enter, every moment you stood in someone else's light instead of your own, your shadow holds all of that. Old shame, old fear, old waiting. She folded her hands. I remove it. The person walks lighter. Fortune follows. For a time. For a time, Ngozi repeated. Everything has a time, the woman smiled, and her teeth were very white and very even. The trouble is that your shadow also holds other things, roots, memory, knowing. A person without their shadow cannot recognize danger because danger often looks like opportunity. It smells like money. It wears good shoes and calls your name in a sweet voice. Ngozi was quiet for a moment. And after the time ends? Ngozi walked home the long way, through the noise and the crowd and the heat of Oshodi, and she thought about what it would mean to want things so badly you sold the very thing that protected you from wanting them wrong. 3 weeks later, Titi's fortune shifted. The boutique manager who had hired her was arrested for fraud. The business shut overnight, and Titi's salary for the month vanished with it. The man stopped calling. The relatives' money turned out to be attached to a scheme that left their father's friend in debt. Everything that had come quickly began leaving quickly, and it left wearing Titi's confidence on its back. By the 5th week, Titi was sick. Not hospital sick, something else. She lay in their small room and stared at the ceiling the way Ngozi had on the night she couldn't sleep. She didn't laugh, she didn't dance. She looked at her hands like she was trying to remember who they belonged to. I can't feel anything, she whispered one night. Not scared, not happy, nothing. Like something in me went quiet. Ngozi sat beside her. I know what it is. She had been preparing. 3 Thursdays in a row she had returned to the woman in Oshodi, not to bargain, but to learn. She brought palm oil the first time, bitter kola the second, and on the 3rd Thursday she brought something the woman had told her to find. A piece of cloth that had touched the ground at the spot where their mother first prayed for them before they were born, in the compound where their grandmother had lived in Abeokuta. Their mother, when asked about it, had cried and then found it, a small ancient piece of adire folded inside a Bible she had carried since she was 19. You are not like your sister, the woman had told Ngozi on that 3rd Thursday. You didn't come here to receive. What do you want? I want to give something back, for her. The woman studied her for a long time. A shadow can be returned, but only by someone who is willing to carry the weight of what was stored in it for one night. By morning it passes, but it is not nothing. It is everything your sister was afraid of, all at once. I'll do it. You haven't heard what her fear is. She's my sister, it doesn't matter. That night, Ngozi pressed the piece of adire cloth to Titi's forehead as she slept, and held it there until she felt the shift, a heaviness entering her own chest, like water filling a pot, slow and then all at once. She felt Titi's fear move through her, the fear of never being chosen, of being ordinary in a city that worshipped spectacle, of loving people who left, of becoming their mother not as a tribute but a trap. Ngozi held all of it. She sat in the dark and breathed through it the way their mother had taught them to breathe through pain. Steady, steady, steady. By the time the call to prayer rang out from the mosque at the end of their street, it was done. Titi sat up. She blinked, she looked at her hands. Then she looked at Ngozi, really looked the way she hadn't in weeks, and her eyes filled with something Ngozi recognized as her actual sister returning. What did you do? She whispered one night. I found something you dropped. Titi looked at the wall, at their shadows stretched long by the early light coming through the curtain. Hers was back, solid, dark, fully hers. She began to cry quietly, which was something Titi never did. Ngozi let her. Later, when Titi asked why she had done it, why she had gone back to the woman, why she had carried that weight, Ngozi gave her the same answer she'd given the woman in the market. "You're my sister." Titi shook her head slowly. "In this Lagos, people don't do that for each other anymore. We do." Ngozi meant it the way people mean things that don't need to be argued, not as a wish, but as a fact, a root thing. The kind that no market woman, no mirror, no amount of wanting could touch. The woman in Oshodi was not there the following Thursday, or the one after. The wooden table was gone, the mirror gone, the midnight-colored wrapper nowhere between the fabric sellers and the yam stalls. But sometimes on a Thursday, when the market is loud and hot, and you are moving fast and something inside you is tired of waiting, stop. Look at your shadow. Make sure it's still yours. If this story found you, it was meant to. Lagos has 1,000 stories like this one, buried in compounds, carried in wrappers, whispered between sisters at night. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Share this with someone who needs to check their shadow. And drop in the comments, what would you have done? Would you have taken the deal? New stories dropping next week. Don't be late.